Hello everyone, welcome to the EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Rajeshwari Moganty, Professor at the Department of Biochemistry, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Today we are going to talk about the module on transmission electron microscope. Now this module is placed in this paper on paper 10 under the techniques, biophysical techniques based on spectroscopy and microscopy. Now the learning objectives in this module are that this is actually designed to explain you the biophysical principle, instrumentation and application of the transmission microscopy, and the learning objectives which are laid out are to elucidate the in-depth, to give the in-depth knowledge of the TEM, introduce you to the TEM technique, transmission electron microscopy, and what is the working principle of this TEM, and give you the more details about the instrumentation like specimen preparation, what are the care you should take in preparation of the sample, and of course what are the data you get, how do you apply, particularly in infectious biology, cancer research, material science and nanotechnology. So with that, I just would like to give you a small introduction that in the previous module we have discussed about the optical microscopy, and I have also clearly emphasized that the electron microscopy is much more gives much more information, much more the high resolution it has, and so on and so forth. So this is better for the better than the conventional microscope. So the electron microscopy, as other than the TEM, you have another technique, that is the which involves the scanning electron microscope. Now as far as the TEM is concerned, which we are doing in this module, the is similar to the optical, but except that photons are replaced by the electrons, number one. The number two, the propelling electrons actually at a thin sample, and by detecting those transmitted through it, that is why it is called the transmission electron microscopy, as the name suggests. This actually maps the local densities of the sample that is obtained. If there are ordered structures such as crystals present in the sample, then the diffraction information can be actually revealed. But when a high voltage is applied, then the electron gun gets heated up, and then of course it gives the electrons. Now these emitted electrons form a cloud around the tip of the filament, and they are propelled down the column. Therefore, due to the high potential or the high voltage that is generated between the filament and the anode. Now that is how the electron beam is actually first produced to be used in the electron microscope, and then these electron beam is focused on the specimen by means of a condenser lens. Now after that, there is an objective lens which forms the initial enlarged image of the illuminated portion of that specimen, which is in a plane, and that is actually suitable for the, can be enlarged at a later stage, and that is between the intermediate lens and the projector lens. So these are the various components. By varying the current objective lens, then the image of the specimen is focused. Now the intermediate and projector lens they actually project the final magnified image onto the screen, which can be actually transferred into a CCD camera. Now the electron microscope provides information in the form of variations of the electron density. Now what actually you are collecting is only the intensity over a particular area. If the transmitted electrons are converted to a visible light by a fluorescent screen, then you can see a fluorescent picture. The image can be then recorded permanently onto a silver halide coated photographic film. Now the electron beam that is liberated from the silver halide, which after chemical treatment actually produces on the film as a negative. Now these negatives will be further processed to get positives on the photographic paper. So that's how you get the image, or the image can be recorded. Photographic paper is known as the electron micrograph. So the information that is obtained from by the in the form of image can also be recorded digitally, and that I have shown in the picture given below. The for example, electron microscope or a transmission electron microscope, in which the adverse effects of the meropenem that are seen that is a drug which is actually susceptible for the Acinetobacter baumannii, which are, these experiments have been done in our own laboratory as a part of the PhD thesis, and these limited, more important, now I am coming to the limitations of the TEM. Now what are the limitations? That many materials require extensive sample preparation to produce that such kind of thin film to be electron transparent, which makes the TEM actually a really time consuming process, and also with a low throughput of the sample, the time consuming, so you can't do much more sample. The graphene is also a relatively transparent material, very hard, and therefore just one atom thickness, it's really difficult to get onto the platform, which materials can be examined and placed. So that's one biggest drawback. And also the single hydrogen atoms and hydrocarbons, they cannot be done so easily. The structure of these samples may also be changed during preparation process, that you cannot actually give a surety. So maybe the structure has already not the original what you are placed. Now the field of the view is also small, and that is one important aspect. And there is a potential that the sample may be damaged by the electron beam. That is a third stage of the process, where the sample may not be actually what it was or originally you have put it on it. So these are actually some of the fundamentally drawbacks of the electron transmission electron microscope. And this is a type of electron microscope in which high energy beam you are using, irradiated on this sample. The electrons are passed through the specimen, which results in the form of the image. Therefore, in general, the TEM has a basic principle of light microscope. Of course, instead of light, you are actually using the electron. So when we talk about the electron microscope, it is important to remember Ruska and Max Knoll, who are the first people to construct in 1931 the first electron microscope. Actually, Ruska got the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1986 for development of the transmission electron microscopy. This is one of the landmarks in electron microscopy. However, the first electron microscope, which was studied for eukaryotic cells, was actually taken in 1940 after so many years. And after that, due to TEM, it is made it possible to study nanoscale structures, nanomaterials, cells and tissues. So the biophysical principle on which TEM is developed is actually, it deserves a place in studying in this chapter. So theoretically, if you see the light microscopy, the limit of resolution of the microscope, which we studied in the previous module, is the distance between the 2 points that can be seen in a microscope. But this is a measure of the clarity of the image. Whereas in the limit of resolution, that can be limited by the wavelength of the photons that are being used to probe the sample with an numerical aperture, that is Na. Okay. So the numerical aperture D equal to 0.61 sin alpha, and where N is a refractive index, the medium in which lens is working. For example, if it is air, it is 1 refractive index, and the alpha, the maximum half angle of the cone of the light that can enter the lens to measure the light gathering ability. So we know that wavelength of the visible light, region of the visible light, is about 400 to 750 or 800 nanometers, and refractive index of air is 1. Therefore, maximum of sin alpha 90 is equal to 1 sin 90. Therefore, the air can be a numerical aperture value greater than 1, that is Na with a 0.95, maximum for 1, and then 1 for air, and oil, of course, it is a higher 1.5. So if you use these values, considering these parameters, it can be estimated that maximum resolution of an optical microscope is only 250 nanometers. To increase the resolution, we have to use the value of the wavelength, which can be done with the electrons, with the help of electrons. So now why I am actually repeating, in the previous also I told you how to calculate the numerical aperture, but this is one of the important part, that how you determine the resolution part of it. Now in de Broglie phenomena, we have studied in quantum biophysics in paper 2, as the speed of the light and the electron motion increases, the electron behave like a electromagnetic radiation, and the wavelength of the electron is related to its kinetic energy. So where h is a Planck constant and the rest of the mass of the electron and E is the energy of the accelerated electron. Therefore, if you are using the electron beams that are studying the electron beams emitted by the heating of the tungsten filament, the accelerated electrons is done by the electrical potential, that is voltage measured in volts, and the anode, and a higher anode voltage gives you higher speed to the electrons, and also the electrons which have a similar de Broglie wavelength or the frequency. Therefore, the faster the electrons travel, the shorter will be the wavelength. So, if the wavelength is reduced, the resolution is increased, because wavelength and frequency are inversely proportional. Therefore, the resolution of the microscope is increased if the acceleration of the voltage of the electron beam is increased. So, this is one important, very important aspect one has to study, remember, in terms of the calculation of the resolution as well as the role of the wavelength in determining the resolution of the image, whether in any electron microscope. Therefore, from the TEM image we can reveal that finest details like internal structures, organelles, mitochondria, everything can be studied. Now, let us see the microscope, different parts of the microscope, organization of the microscope, I mean that is of the TEM. That imaging system, one of the important thing is imaging system, which contains electromagnetic lens system and a screen with a phosphorescent plate, where the sample holder which holds the specimen and the beam of the electrons which are focused on the specimen by the condenser. Now, this consists of the electromagnetic magnets called the magnetic lenses. Now, the plate glows because when it is hit by the electrons after passing through this specimen, the phosphor screen is actually made up of fine zinc sulfide, which is of say 10 to 100 nanometers, and therefore, when that is hit by the electrons, it gives this thing light, and the CCD actually picks up these sample pictures. Now, the sample preparation is one of the crucial, as I told you, that it is very cumbersome. Nevertheless, it is important to know that, because when you give it to in any transmission microscope, you won't be doing it yourself, but you have to make the sample. So, here you are using the glutaraldehyde to fix the sample for the TEM, and mostly you use it for proteins, biological samples. They get covalently linked to these molecules. So, you are actually fixing onto the glutaraldehyde. Then comes the osmium tetroxide. Osmium tetroxide fixation actually acts as a secondary fixation. So, this is the part that takes time in preparing the sample. And also osmium tetroxide, the phospholipid head regions of the membrane actually creates a contrast with the neighboring cytoplasm. This also helps in the stabilization of many proteins by transforming them into gels, and therefore they don't destroy the structural features. By fixing the sample, actually you are trying to see that it is not destroyed and it is in the same condition or the structure which you have originally given. So, the alcohols during hydration also can happen if you add. Heavy metals are also used to increase electron density, so that give better internal structures. Now, dehydration is one of the processes. Now, this step is to remove water content from the tissue sample and replaced by any organic solvent. Then the next step is to infiltration, then embedding and polymerization. Now, normally the epoxy resins are used to penetrate the cells, which will space and give hard structure so that it can tolerate the pressure by cutting when you are cutting the sample. So, after processing and embedding is done into the flat molds of these samples, next is the step is a polymerization, in which you are using a resin to allow it to overnight to keep it at a temperature of 60 degrees. So, that now sample is actually fixed and heated and stabilized. Now, then you take a sections. Now, the section is about slices of 30 to 60 nanometer thickness you cut into an ultra micro, slices, and these are actually fixed into a copper grid. This is not done usually by student, by technicians, but this all is important in terms of fixing the sample and preparation of the sample, which is one of the most important method, I mean important process stage of the doing the TEM. Otherwise, if the sample preparation is not good, then the picture won't be, the images you get TEM are not really good. In infectious biology, what you are doing is a prokaryotes are the smallest unicellular organisms, which you can easily study, visualize through the naked eye. But light microscopy can decipher only the morphology of the certain small cells, but not the internal organs. Initially, what we used to do is to see the prokaryotic cells using a light microscope with a 1.4 numerical aperture and about 0.4 nanometers resolution. But because of the high resolution, even the prokaryotic samples you can through the TEM in a much better fashion. So the figures we have shown here, two pictures that the which shows the EM of the it's a virus inside the tissue and methicillin resistant staphylococcus, that's a bacteria, or as ingestion by the neutrophils respectively, and both of them can never be seen on an optical microscope. Therefore, it led to an identification of causative organism and its precise location of the infection, where it is actually causing the infection, and therefore it is very helpful in diagnostic approach, and also of course next is the therapeutic approaches. Now, the other picture I am showing is a smallpox tissue section containing the orthopox viruses. This is also taken from a database that from the smallpox tissue section has been taken, and the other picture is the methicillin resistant staphylococcus, that is ingestion by the neutrophils. So, now when you see all these pictures, you will appreciate that the TEM has it has its advantages or benefits in looking into the structural organization, structural details, and which you actually normally don't be seen in a normal microscope. Now, after the applications in biology and bacteria, microbiology, now there are a lot of applications in nanobiotechnology. Now, the TEM has the ability to determine the positions of atoms within the materials, which can be made indispensable tool for nanotechnology research. Now, nanotechnology is one of the frontier areas of research, which is almost used in every kind of a branch, not only in biology, but in other areas also. So, in this the structural information, you can go up to the atomic level, and the focused beam of these electrons actually travel through the specimen, which is in general a nanoparticle, for example silver nano or a gold nanoparticle, and depending on the density of the nanomaterial present, electrons are transmitted. So, you can actually determine the size of the sample through the sample, but however, if the electrons are scattered and disappear from the beam, at the bottom of the microscope, the transmitted or the unscattered electrons hit the fluorescent screen. Now, this gives a shadow image of the specimen, which is actually gives the different parts that are displayed in various darkness or the light and dark pictures according to their density. Therefore, you can actually, what I am saying can be seen in the figure which I have shown for application of the nanotechnology. The size determination, that is the thickness, you can determine by the lab in a synthesized gold nanoparticle in a lab. Now, the electron microscope therefore actually confirms the morphology or the structural details up to 40 nanometers. Now, this is another gold nanoparticle picture you can see on the screen with a different resolution, that is up to 100 nanometer resolution and a 50 nanometer resolution. So, these electron microscope confirms the morphology of the gold nanoparticles. Now, the gold nanoparticle is actually about 40 nanometer with irregular shapes, and then you can see that this is actually an image with the help of the contribution of Dr. Chaudhary, and therefore, this pictures actually show that nanotechnology, the TEM is a boon to studying the nanotechnology and the size and the morphology of nanoparticles. Now, after giving the details of the TEM both in the technical as well as the specimen preparation and all that, let me summarize that the TEM has a much higher resolution as compared to the conventional optical microscopy, and the efficiency of the TEM can be accessed at atomic levels with higher resolution. You have seen so many photographs there, you will appreciate that it is much better than the normal this thing, because it can give the chemical structures, crystal orientation, temporal imaging, everything can be done by the TEM. TEM also works on the basic principles of the light, but it just uses the electron microscope. Therefore, you can calculate the resolution and other things by using the same equations as you have done earlier. Now, even the much lower wavelength of electrons makes it possible to get a good resolution, which is 1000 times or 100,000 times better than that of a light microscope. And the beam of electrons, what you are using, is being modulated by the magnetic field to generate a magnetic lenses with varying power, and additionally the electrostatic field can also cause deflection of electron at various angles, and that is exactly the one which gives a different structural structural details of the sample. Now, as the beam of the electron pass through the sample, which is approximately 100 nanometer thickness, image thus is formed, is actually sent to a imaging device. It could be photographic film, or it could be a you know, or a CCD camera or something like that. In life sciences, the specimen preparation is a very important step. I discussed in detail how to fix the sample, secondary fixation, and so on and so forth. Also, the transmission electron microscope has been provided with a number of applications, not only in biology, infectious biology, cancer biology, but also in the studying the microbiological samples, bacteria, virus, fungi, which call lot of pathologies, and infections also. The cancer is one big area where diagnostic approaches hugely use TEM to understand the you know, differentiated cells which are benign or cancerous, hematopoietic systems, lymphomas, and so on, malignancies, different kinds of things can also be studied. I mean, where people use TEM for research and for determining the therapeutic purposes. And lastly, that also that determine the position of the atoms and materials in nanotechnology, where you are preparing gold nanoparticles or any other new materials. All these things is one of the branch where nanotechnology highly depends on the TEM. So, with that I close this module, this session on the module on TEM, and I request you to do some of the numericals and the questions that are being given in the quadrant 4, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.